Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, well, latest post covering finance and property news. Another Monday, and Edwin is back for another rant. And Edwin, you look a bit cold there.
Hey, look, I'm a lot warmer than what I look. So, but they tell me it snowed up in Katoomba. I missed it. I missed it. Just being too busy, I guess, to worry about the snow. But it's rather interesting. It's totally missed it. I mean, and I was out and about yesterday. I didn't really. It got a bit windy and chilly, but. Maybe I'm eating the right foods now, Martin. Eating the right foods, drinking the right teas, and cleansing, detoxing, and my body feels great. It's not really feeling the cold as much as I did before, and it's going to be interesting what happens. But the bigger question is, Martin, are the vendors feeling the cold and the pinch and whatever else? There's a lot going on, but the markets continue to be patchy, which is what we're going to be talking about. There are a lot of reports, pro property, against property, property highs, property lows, rate rises, rate falls, and so forth. But it's a wacky world. We know it's a wacky world, but can it get any wackier than Paris? That's all I want to know. Can we get any wackier than Paris, Martin?
So, I have to say, Edwin, that the whole Paris thing was way, way weird. I couldn't make head and the tail of it. And I believe that the opening ceremony was now taken down from YouTube because of some of the things that they showed. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, I don't think we're too far behind, Dave Martin. That's the thing. I mean, we've got a freaky and wacky property arena, property world ourselves, and the political side of things, make up for most of the wackiness and the freakishness of where we are in the market. The unfortunate thing is that the people that suffer are the ones that are forced to be just spectators, not being able to get in the market because of what the lending criteria have changed a lot. Obviously, the interest rates. Or the pressure that puts on first home buyers. But look, the government's going to throw a lot at this market now, particularly if the 50% of the pundits are right and the RBA lifts its the rates, more so from the locals, because in my opinion, a lot of the buyers are investors and also foreign entities or foreign buyers that have just got fresh PR. So it's going to be in many parts of Sydney we're seeing that. Obviously, it's not in every single market, but the unfortunate thing, Martin, is whatever happens moving forward, it's the local Aussies, the ones that suffer, become spectators and just continue to watch the wackiness and the freakishness of this property market. So I'd say we're somewhat outdoing the French.
I think you're right, particularly on the property market front. And of course, the RBA is probably going to lift rates. Depends on where the inflation number comes in. AMP chief economist says if it comes in at 1.1% or 4.1% annually, the RBA will most likely lift rates. Interestingly, there was a fascinating article also about the fact that the fuel inflation, which has come down, may also be coming up. And of course, Christopher Joy continues to argue that the RBA has underestimated the strength of inflation. And the question is, will the politicians try and sandbag? And the RBA Governor Michelle Bullock has responded, we're looking through some of the sorts of things that might be impacting the headline inflation, like government policy, and may well lift. So we'll see. I mean, it's probably unlikely to go down anytime soon, and that's putting a lot of pressure on households. And you're right, insofar that this wackiness is all over the place. There was an interesting article, whether you saw this, but that was suggesting that there are places where people can buy. Well, yeah, what are you being offered? You're being offered some of these newly built high-rise developments, like Erskineville, one of the top spots, because of course there's still some building going on. But I suppose the question is, who wants to live in a dog box, and probably a poorly constructed dog box at that? So it's a bit of an interesting question. And more importantly, Edwin, fascinating to see this, that in fact some tenants now being crushed by the rising rents are actually taking in more housemates to try and save. And the basically the idea there is that you spread the pain. But oh dear, this is a real mess now. And I have to say, Edwin, that although the property markets look as though they're still relatively buoyant in some areas, there have been now a few articles coming out suggesting that maybe things might be not quite as buoyant. And this is one from Ray White's boss that said vendors need to be careful regarding price growth expectations, which is a nice way of putting it. Or, of course, if you take account of what happened recently over the weekend with MIMS extending the no ban evictions to 90 days from 60 days. And that riled Aaron Patrick, who wrote an opinion piece in the Financial Times saying, considering buying a rental property in New South Wales, think again. Wacky is the word.
Yeah, look, let's go from the last point there with regards to the 90-day eviction notice. No grounds eviction notice. You got to ask the question: what has that done to the property arena in Melbourne? Has it helped the tenants? No. Well, what's it doing with the rental arena in Queensland? Has it helped the tenants? No. It's really unless it's policed. I mean, the intentions are somewhat right, but the execution is totally wacky, if we continue to use the word, because there's no real supervision, there's no real policing of what property management teams do or don't do. More to the point, the WeChat chatters have been talking about that. That's the chatter at the moment is whether or not they feel that it's going to impact the rental market in the Sydney region as it has in the Melbourne region. But I think more to the point, Martin, it's really going to affect the tenants that are living or the landlords that have got properties that are not well maintained. That's what it's really going to affect, and those that are not on a fixed term lease, because you can't kick them out on a fixed term lease anyway. I mean, there are certain procedures that you have to go through. The other thing there, Martin, is as I keep on saying and I keep alluding to, but the policing bodies don't seem to be paying a lot of attention. And as a matter of fact, as we discussed on the show, they've been given grounds for mediation on something that 50% of the NCAP members believe they've got jurisdiction, and the other 50% don't believe. I mean, I'm of the opinion that they don't have jurisdiction over private lettings that hold no leases as such, but rather an agreement, or more to the point, where the tenants are living, are renting budget accommodation scenarios, which is room letting or bed hopping or room bed sharing, whatever you want to think. So this is the private letting, and this is where this legislation is not capturing any of that and the issues around that. I think if Vince really wants to do something with in the rental arena, and I know he watches our show, so here's a tip for him. And if he wants to get brownie points with the rental community, because the majority of the rental community are voters. So here's a nice solid tip: bringing the minimum standards for rentals. That'll really shake the tree. And that'll get things put in place, and I believe that that's going to have a different effect to what it had in the Melbourne market, because in Sydney the rents are strong, and a lot of, as I said, and we've discussed before, that a lot of the investors are jumping in and hopping into the rental market here in Sydney because of the polarization of the demographic groups, the different from different ethnicity that yeah, are okay with house sharing, room letting, where you've got 3-4 families in a 4 or 5 bedroom home. They're okay with it because it's their way of saving for a better future, saving for better accommodation, and they come from a different world than what we're used to. I mean, I remember, as I've shared before, when we came in the mid-70s into Australia, that's what we did. That's what Mum and Dad did. We shared with a house in Gladesville, 29 Pittwater Road, for those that are interested. We shared a house with our 2 uncles and an auntie, and they were just starting their family life, and at that time there was what, four of us. Another one of my other sisters was on the way at that time, and so it wasn't a small group, and we were sharing a 4-bedroom house. So, but that's what you had to do back then in order to get ahead. And the new migrants, they've got that mentality. And the other thing that I've been saying about the migrants, also the new migrants that you and I have shared, is that the new migrants, not only do they have that sharing mentality, but they also have that. They do come with more money than the previous migrants before the pandemic, but they just want to position themselves put themselves in a much better position so that they can buy in better locations to provide better education facilities for the children, and be in a better position moving forward. So because of that, and because of how prolific that market is, I think by bringing in the minimum standards, we're not going to see the aftermath that we saw in Melbourne, where landlords just up and left. And so going back to the 90 days, I don't think it's a big deal. In my opinion, it's not even a vote winner, because as I've already said, the government bring in new policies. The real estate bodies have already got 6 ways to Sunday to bypass, and they'll find the loopholes in those policies to overcome. I mean, it's just a given, because the lack of policing. Going back to another point there that you raised also, Martin, with regards to food inflation. I mean, that's a real thing. That's something that should be front of mind for all political parties of all persuasions, because there are a lot of people that are doing without. And even if you have a good secure job, that is one of the things that I've found. A lot of Aussie families over the decades have done, and that is that they've gone without in order to maintain the principal place of residence. The principal place of residence in the Aussie mind is something that many will protect to the end, and they'll do without medical. They'll do without food, proper nutrition, entertainment, sporting, whatever, in order to protect that, because that was the Aussie dream that we've now, for many, unfortunately, has become an Aussie nightmare. So that's real. But look, even I've changed my ways. From your fast food outlets. I mean, I've been comparing things, and here's another tip for our followers and viewers. If you want a good meal, if you want a good lunch, and you're on the run and you're around Eastwood, Ashfield, Burwood, and around some parts of Epping, not all, but I find that you can get great meals and very cheap. And if you pay cash, you get a discount. with the WeChat chat. I was just telling them I sent you. We can't use WeChat wallet, but you can use cash and you get a 10% discount on the meal. And there's some good meals there, for 13, 15, for 13 or $15. That's I'll tell you what, it's better than buying a Big Mac meal, and it's more nutritious. So people are finding different ways, and as I said, this food inflation is really one that many politicians have to rein in, have to really think about, because the unfortunate thing is, as I said, many are doing without, and 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 children that are doing without the essentials, for the young bodies as they develop and come to puberty and adolescence. It's sad because the population is not getting healthier. It's going two ways: undernourished or obese. And the healthy body in between is really diminishing.
Absolutely. It's a very sad state of affairs. I remember the first time I went to the US years and years ago. I was amazed at the size of the portions that were on offer at places where you could eat. And I was also amazed at the size of the people that I followed through the malls. I mean, it was like I felt really, really skinny, right? But I have to say that the proliferation of obesity, and also the fact that you can get very, very cheap, high-fat stuff around the place is concerning, particularly at a time when, as you say, people are under the gun. But there are alternatives. We just need to know where to look. And it's important that we don't neglect some of these things, even at a time of financial pressure. Mind you, of course, not everybody is experiencing pressure the same way. And I think it's just worth highlighting again that there was this article that said, cost of living crisis, if you're a boomer, you hardly notice it. And they're basically, once again, talking about the fact that there are some people doing really, really well. Life might be desperate for those bearing the full brunt of the economic crisis, but it's a very different story for cashed up older Australians. And it's interesting that some of the economists are saying, well, that's fine. If people have got the money, they should spend it. Absolutely. The real issue is that, of course, we've created this division in society between those haves and those that have not. And interestingly, as somebody wrote the other day in one of the papers, it's interesting that we've still got quite a lot of support for a lot of older people who are now actually doing quite well. Now, I'm not saying that all older people are in that bucket. There are a lot of people who are really struggling in that older age group too. So you can't simply write them off as one group. But there are still some people with significant funds available. And some of those, by the way, are still buying some of the investment properties. And I think it's quite fascinating to watch some of this turnover that's going on at the moment, particularly actually in Melbourne, where we're seeing some people in the investment sector selling because they can't make the investment property work, net investment yields being so paltry at the moment. And in fact, Aaron Patrick makes that point. I did a show on this over the weekend called Watch for Lemons, Are Cracks Appearing in the Unstoppable Property Market? And I made the point in that show that, there are people who are actually still purchasing, but sometimes what they're purchasing is not necessarily good property. There are people who are being forced to sell, particularly some investors, because of some of these new rules that have come in. And so you can be very careful, because if you're not careful, you can end up with a lemon, and a property lemon is a property lemon is a property lemon. It's very hard to turn it into a fruit salad.
You can turn that into lemonade. And then, look, this is where people have to really wonder, and if they're going to buy an investment property, or if they're going to buy a property, this is where you really have to spend that little bit of money and do the due diligence, and then ask yourself the many questions that we go over with our clients. The reasons and the what ifs, because what's saving a lot of bad investments or bad investors or investment decisions for investors in the Sydney market is supply and demand, right? The demand is high, and that's really what's saving a lot of them. And therefore, sometimes you come out even, or you lose a little bit, but at least you don't take a huge hit, and you just got to prepare. But I think in a lot of other areas where you've got your Melbourne markets and other markets that we don't follow, I don't follow. We just follow the Melbourne market out of interest and out of the commentary that we put up on on our rants on Mondays. It's a different market, and it's a different rental arena. Perhaps from what we're seeing in the Sydney market, where the bad decisions because of the demand and because of the appetite for those that are hungry to invest in property is higher. It keeps it buoyant. But whereas in Melbourne, as I said, it's harder in Melbourne to do what a lot of the WeChat chatters and the silent tigers, or some ethnic groups that do facilitate for the budget accommodation. It's harder to do down there because the regulations are a lot stronger than what they are, or the policing is a lot stronger than what it is in New South Wales. And the investors that have purchased in Melbourne, the majority of the investors are, I would think, or a large portion of the investors are from Sydney anyway, that have bought out in Melbourne and in the outer regions. I know over the years from 2015 to 2019, there was a huge drive of WeChat chatters going to. There was a lot of spruiking. Even our old mate Doc Wilson was spruiking for properties, for Red Door and other marketing companies, for people to buy, mainly targeted at the WeChat chatter investors to buy property in the Melbourne region, in the outer regions of Melbourne, where we're seeing a huge inflow of properties on market. So, and this is what we have. So it's funny how, not funny. It's obviously it's a given that the mainstream media don't want to talk about it. I mean, because in a way it's not politically correct to discuss these issues of the polarization, these issues of the cash in hand rentals, budget accommodation, how it's done, why they do it. But in all that, they want to bring in policies. The unfortunate thing is that those policies only, it seems to drive more people and will drive more people in the Sydney market towards private lettings, because we're at a stage in time in the property space that it's easy to do, and it's not hard. And the people that are renting, the majority of the people that are renting these the rooms, they will hand over cash on a weekly basis to the landlord, and because they prefer to do that than not to be in under a roof, not to have those facilities. Better having a roof in a share house than living in a caravan or a tent or in a car, or bed hopping from one friend's place to another. So this is where we are, and this is why I say it's a freakish and wacky world. Yeah. In the meantime, we've got entire apartment blocks that are that are vacant. So I mean, but Catherine Cashmore, yourself and myself, we've been talking about this for many years, and it's only now that a lot of this is becoming mainstream news. Perhaps but we talk about the needs, the crisis, the lack of policing. We talk about all those things, but we still don't want to talk about the immigration policies, which is until we bring that to the table. We can talk till the cows come home, but we're not going to achieve anything.
Well, I think that's unfortunately true. And I always come back to this, Edwin, that there are a series of policies that could be executed both at a federal and a state level that would actually really tackle some of the housing issues. But of course, migration is something that people don't want to touch because they need to have the big GDP growth, et cetera, et cetera. But then, you look at Queensland, and Queensland's come up with an interesting little side play here. Well, if you've got a view, we are going to tax you a bit more, 40 to 50% more on the view tax. That's one that I saw, which I think could be quite interesting. I wonder what happens then if they then build in front of you. Do you then, don't have to pay the tax? But it is interesting that there's a lot of desperation amongst some of these players, particularly some of the state players, to try and find some of these levers. Right? The MIMS example is a good one where I don't think it's going to make much difference between 60 and 90, of course, property investors saying it's my property, I should be able to do what I want with it. But then on the other hand, you've got the interests of the renters, who are often the ones who are much caught in the middle. But there are policies that could be executed, but those policies aren't necessarily the ones that people want to talk about. And just on that context, it is also interesting to notice, for example, that the latest outing from the media, and you mentioned the mainstream media, is to try and amp up the new next round of the Australian home guarantee scheme. 50,000 people can purchase a property and you can save 25,000 on lender's mortgage insurance, although there are specific criteria that need to be required to be able to actually access it. And there's some limitations on which properties would it be appropriate to go against. So that's a little bit of a sort of a mess, really, in terms of actually it's not going to solve much at all. Mainstream media, though, will be pushing that hard. They also continue to spruik the old, rich lister drops 8.5 million in North Bondi because they want to be spruiking the top end of the property market, despite the fact that there's an interesting article again that I covered in my post over the weekend. Somebody looking at the Toorak area and covering that basically said, well, there's nobody buying at the top end in Toorak at the moment. It's just too difficult. And then, of course, again, a lot of people are saying, oh, Western Australia is the place to go. And yet, you look at this article from one newspaper over in the West saying there's 165,000 homeowners may need to sell if rates don't actually come down. There's a stretch in affordability in the West, and property prices are still rising. But nevertheless, the market over there might not be quite so appropriate as some people might think. So even in the West, there's now questions about, well, are these markets overvalued, and how is this playing out? So I come back to the central point. Our policymakers have levers they could pull if they chose to pull them, but they choose not to pull them. And that means that we end up with this, stupidity that we've been talking about and spending the last little while. And by the way, of course, we've still got the construction sector continuing to report more failures. Failing construction companies made up more than 1 in 4 of the record 11,049 corporate collapses in the previous financial year. And restructuring experts expect to see more ahead. So when you put all this together, you begin to ask the question, how much more pain will ordinary Australians have to bear because of this bad policy that's been around for, well, frankly, years now?
Well, the thing is, Martin, that the local Aussies, we've been the sacrificial lamb to overseas money, to overseas interest, to the haves as well here. Those in power, and unfortunately those that have not, or those that the first-time buyers that have wanted to enter the market over the last 5 years have been really the ones that really been thrown under the bus. So we go back to the Gold Coast, the view tax that they want to impose, the Gold Coast City Council with the view tax. What's that going to do to the have-nots? In other words, those that don't own a property that are renting. That tax is going to get passed on to them, right?
Yep.
So rents are going to continue to skyrocket, and the other side of that coin also is you're going to get investors if those properties were being rented out, they're going to sell. They're going to sell. So but the first home buyers, the people that want to come into, they're not going to buy. They're not going to buy those properties. So you've got very few will buy. The many that watch our show will definitely won't buy. Because of you walking into a high rise is you're purposefully walking, stepping out of a car doing 160 kilometers an hour on the M4. So there's a lot of pain ahead. So the other thing is, and I say watch this space, is there's going to be a lot of investors pulling out of the Queensland market, Brisbane markets, from a lot in Brisbane regions, because, as I've been saying for a while now, the age of the properties that are predominantly bought once again from investors from Melbourne and also Sydney, majority from Sydney, they're bought into those markets. So you've got your Logan City, Logan Central, Redcliffe, and all the way to where Pauline Hanson used to have a fish and chip shop. All these areas where they're really old properties, and they haven't really been well maintained. So as the minimum standard policies there bite, a lot of investors from interstate are going to be selling off their investment properties and offloading them, and they're going to require a lot of work. And this is where I concur with your thoughts. A lot of the properties that are coming on the market are lemons, and lemons and more lemons. So it's going to be interesting, but is that going to be countered by more migration, moving to interstate migration and also overseas migration, moving into the Queensland, into Queensland? Will it be counted? The only way that I can see that will be counted is if the state governments have a greater push to support small business operators, because small business operators are getting hammered all over the place because of the ATO commitments, all the red tape that comes with owning a small to medium enterprise, all the regulations and overheads and rents, and again because of stupid government policies such as in Melbourne, increasing the land rates, the land taxes, and therefore that's just gets passed on to the tenants. So all these things are going to be, so unless they are scaled down or wound back, well, then you're not going to get people investing. The only other option is we go back to really opening up the borders to your Asian tourists. Now, what that holds it may be a lifeline for the SMEs, for the small operators of takeaway shops, the small operators of cafes, those in the in that type of industry. So in the hospitality, it may be a it may be a lifesaver for them by opening up the border, opening up perhaps are we going to be moving towards that no visa, no visa required for that 15-day period that we can go to China if you're a hold an Australian passport. So that it's going to be interesting to see what the state governments, being of the Labor persuasion, push the federal government to do in order to support it. Because I can't. There's no other way, right? But what happens with that, Martin, as you and I know, is then we get tourists, and then the tourists graduate into ghost migrants, and then they enter the cash economy, the workforce. Yeah, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I mean, will that bring construction costs down? Who knows? But yeah, that's the things that are playing out in some of these states. Now, the other slide that you put up was earlier on was also to do with the with businesses, and I think that was also being discussed on with the ABC as well. How small SMEs are really hitting the wall, and 40% or so will be out of business by the end of the year, but potentially. They're really walking on thin ice, let alone the construction industry. We know for a fact that from HIA reports from HIA that more than 50% of major construction companies they believe they're trading insolvent. So there's your economic picture. So what's supporting? What is supporting? What's holding the price points of property? Why are they getting those 8.7 million or 8.1 million or 8.7 million price tags in Bondi's? And there's a home that got sold I think on the weekend in Strathfield for 8.1 million. So I mean there's still a lot of money floating around. But what's supporting this is the demand, the lack of properties, the lack of the properties that there's a lot of appetite for those that are not only foreigners, but for those that have been sitting on the sideline for years, that have cashed out of cryptocurrency, cashed out of shares, cashed out of other investments, and are just waiting for the right moment to pounce. Maybe it's this spring, maybe it's post spring and into the summer seasons, but it's a wait and see wait and see to see what happens with the listings on market. Obviously, a lot's going to be have to do with what happens on the 6th of August. Many decisions will be made then as to people are going to either jump in or hold out. If it's on hold, if there's a hold, my thoughts are that those that have been waiting will inevitably just jump in. That if the rates go up, well then we'll see what happens with regards to that to those that have been sitting on the sideline. Again, for me, it's a double-edged sword. If the rates are on hold, those that have been waiting on the sideline are just getting itchy, because there's a lot of people still attending open for inspections in many Sydney markets, and there's a huge appetite still for freestanding homes. Apartments are a different story. If the rates go up, well then vendors are going to have to adjust their expectations, adjust their price points. But but then again, people are going to jump in also. The only lifeline that buyers are going to have is if we get a somewhat of a bit of a panic, and the listing numbers clock up to 10, 11, 12,000 freestanding homes on the market, because at the moment we're only above 7,000.
Yes, and just coming back to the RBA decision, it was quite interesting that the latest from Westpac. This is actually the sentiment survey, consumer sentiment survey, and it continues to hold at very, very weak levels. As many as 60% of consumers can now expect mortgage rates to rise over the next year. That's up from 40% in April. The shift in expectations has been across the board, but the sharpest has been among older age groups, middle-income earners, homeowners, and consumers in Western Australia. I think that's quite interesting. So there's definitely something going on there in terms of the expectation of, and so certainly in my one-to-one conversations I've had over the last couple of weeks, some people are definitely holding back and waiting to see how this plays out. Because really what's happened, Edwin, is that originally I think everybody thought rates would go up, the Reserve Bank would then conquer inflation, rates will come down. So it was a sprint rather than actually a marathon. But now we've got this extended period of higher interest rates, and probably not high enough to really quash inflation. People are really feeling it now. So it's a real marathon. And there are more and more people who are really just struggling with the day-to-day, as we've touched on several times in past shows, and I continue to see this. Another interesting observation is that, whilst prices are relatively positive in some areas, of course, in regional areas, not so much. And in fact, the latest reports coming out here showed that prices have plunged in regional markets after the pandemic boom boil. And down there, that little blue chart, that's actually Thurrool, where, of course, I sold my property. And I think I probably did right to sell when I did. So it shows you that the story of everything's gone up is actually missing the point. You've got to look a little bit more carefully than that. And I guess the bottom line is always, go granular, understand what's really going on, et cetera, et cetera. But coming back to Larry's article, which one I showed a little while ago about that vendors need to rein in price expectations. That was what Ray White said. You actually threw a very interesting comment back on it, which I think it's worth just looking at, because of course there's an interesting question here about what agents are actually doing.
Yeah, well, I put to Larry that for him to pass on the message to Dan White. I mean, why do vendors have these high expectations? Is my question, and it's a rhetorical question, because it's because the agents are the ones that put that shit in their head, right? So and this is what we call in our game, we call it buying the listing. I mean, I'd love to have a discussion with Dan. The industry blames the vendors for two things. They blame the vendors for high price expectations, which is buying the listing that the agents do, and they blame the vendors for underquoting. Famous story by the ex CEO or president of, or quite a big CEO of REIV, was the vendor made me do it. The vendor makes agents underquote. Yeah, it's always the vendor, right? It's either the vendor or the buyers. It's never the professional that's meant to guide and meant to give a comparative market analysis on the property and explain to the vendors as to why this is the price point. But you've got to ask yourself again, Martin. You've got to ask yourself that question: where do they get these high expectations? It's from the agents that give them the bullshit in the first place when they go and do the CMAs or the comparative market analysis. And this is where I put case in point. Last week I was talking to a local agent in the Blacktown region. He's he's been working the area for 24, 27 years. Knows his shit very, very well. And he does very well in parts of Blacktown. And he went and did a market appraisal on a property and he appraised it at $1.4 million. This is last week. He thought he was going to get the listing until two other agents turned up. and the vendor was persuaded otherwise because the vendor knew him. He's known him for about 20 years. He tells me he's known the this particular property owner for about 20 years because he's well versed in the area. He's a lot of people in the area know him, so he got called in. He thought he was going to get the listing, so he called me and he said, do you have a purchaser for this home that I've got coming up? I don't have the contract yet. I don't have the agency agreement yet, but I'm confident that I'll get it. Well, lo and behold, he rang me up 2 days later and said, mate, forget about it, because two other agents have walked in, and one's pissed in the pocket and told them that they'll get 1.55 million for the property, and another one's told them that they'll get 1.6 million plus for the property. And I spell it all out there in that post. And and I said to him, mate, what's it worth? And he said, look, it's worth $150,000 more than a property we sold not too long ago in that same street, because the demand's pretty high. But the one that we sold in the same street not too long ago is a superior property to this property. So when you start comparing apples with apples, 1.4 is a fair price. So when you start getting dipsticks, regardless of who they are, regardless of what they own, regardless of what they think that they may have, or they may be the CEOs of Albo and Co real estate franchise group in wherever, but at the end of the day, it pisses me off no end when you get people that should know better that put out statements like that, and and it's disappointing for Larry not to get an opposing opinion. And that's why I sent them that tweet, and I tagged Larry on it. And I can guarantee you, Martin, I can bet your bottom dollar that the guide on that property, when it comes on the market, is going to be no more than 1.35 to 1.45. When our viewers and you and I know, and many others know in that street know, that the vendor is going to be expecting 1.6 and above, as a sub point. And I will keep a close eye on it because I know the property, I know where it is, and I've got the address, and I know the agent that gave him the value, the guide, the selling guide of 1.6, that they will achieve 1.6 and above. I know the agent, I know what she does, I know how she plays the game. She'll buy the listing, and then she'll underquote her on the marketing, get hordes of people there, and but unfortunately, in this one, I'm calling that it'll backfire because from what I've been told about the property, it needs a lot more work than the property that was sold for $150,000 less not too long ago in that same street. So we'll see. It's a wait and see. But it just gets it's not surprising. As I say, it's not surprising that the industry does this, but the professionals are meant to be the selling agents. The professionals are meant to guide the vendors, but it's the industry itself that creates a rod for itself, and that creates a bad reputation that we carry.
Absolutely. Buying a listing is quite widespread at the moment, of course. It's interesting, actually, when you read some of the other stuff that's going on, that things, in the real estate sector, we know they're a bit dodgy, but I saw this one and I saw you reacted to it. I never said this before, but dark times are coming to real estate. You responded to that. I wonder where that particular agent might be operating.
Yeah, I was reading. Oh, I thought, look, the headline caught my attention, right? And as I started reading the first paragraph, I'm thinking, started to sort of wonder and thinking if Adam was was a Melbourne-based agent. And by the time I got to I think it's the second or third paragraph, It was no surprise. Yeah, it's a Melbourne agent, and again, we've got experts. He's probably had a bad listing month, and now wants to make a name for himself, and is calling something. Correct me if I'm wrong, Martin, but you got a better memory than I have. I mean, but he's calling something like a 40% potentially drop in prices if there are two rate rises, before the end of the year or something along those lines. But look, that may be the case in Melbourne. That may be the case in his patch. I don't know. I didn't do any research as to what area he's working in. But yeah, to sort of make those blanket statements and calling a blanket statement, I mean, go all out and call a 20, 30%, 40% drop if you will in the Melbourne region or parts of the Melbourne region. But when you start making blanket statements across Australia, I don't know. Look, I'm no economist. I just call it, I basically go, as I keep on saying, post February 2020. Um, I'm purely focused on numbers, supply, demand, and the how the construction industry is ticking along. Cost of building, what's being built, what's not being built, in immigration, because as opposed to when you start comparing markets, to Canada, as others have, they start comparing our market to Canada. I heard I got sent a DM'd a YouTube link from some commentator again in Melbourne that's comparing our market to Canada and Hong Kong and all that. I mean, chalk and cheese. Chalk and cheese, as far as I'm concerned, um, because of what is happening. And again, because we're a multifaceted market, and as you and I say, it's many markets, in many parts of Sydney, and in LGA could have anywhere from 10 to 50 different markets. And then when you start talking about class of property, type of property, location, so it was farcical, and I don't know. The industry has a way of wanting, making headlines for the sake of making headlines. So I mean, his name is what was his name? His name is Adam Pling. Ing like Pling. Maybe he's just a one hit wonder. So who knows?
Yeah, but remember, of course, this is actually in the Daily Mail, right? And the Daily Mail, amongst many media publications, is all out for clicks, right? So this is this is clickbait at all sorts of levels. But I agree with you that talking generically about property prices doesn't make a lot of sense, right? You have to, we keep saying this, Edwin, and for those who follow the show regularly, you'll know what I'm going to say. Go granular, look at the local information, understand some of the local dynamics, understand that there are dogs and stars in terms of property in those locations, and therefore not every property is going to behave in the same way. And as soon as you go higher, as soon as you see generic averages in terms of indices or clearance rates, or read across from other markets into Australia or vice versa, then you're missing this local granularity. And I think that's all that we need to really say on this one. But it is interesting how we have to keep coming back and reinforcing it, because there are so many highfalutin, high-pitched articles that just sort of talk generically, splurge across the whole country, or one market or more, and just don't actually get into understand what's really going on. And that's what we try to do on the channel here. Let's move on and talk about one other thing. You touched on it briefly, but I think it's worth just spending a bit more time on it. You were speaking to a group of chatterers, mostly student visa holders, and this was a really interesting deep dive in how they are thinking about things. So take us through this, Edwin.
Yeah, look, yeah. Well, Dusty, and I, we got invited to to speak to a group of chatterers, and yeah, they were obviously interested in property. Dusty was doing most of the talking because I don't talk Mandarin, but it was look in nuts and bolts of it. It was I mean we have discussed this before in the show, but it sort of went in a little bit further into more detail. So the amongst the chatterers, I've known some of it, but didn't know the extent of it. And then I started to think that basically these young people that are looking at buying property because obviously they can, um, uh, according to the visas, and and then we started talking about how they spend, the expenditure, which was an interesting discussion. So they pay their rent through WeChat Wallet. Um, Now I sort of knew that in the private sense because they paid, when you're talking about budget accommodation. What I wasn't aware of was that there are some real estate agencies also opt to accept rent from these students through WeChat Wallet because all they're interested in is the weekly commission that they the clip of the ticket that pay to the to also to the WeChat Wallet if they the licensee in charge or the office holds an account in China. You got to have an account in China in order to operate WeChat Wallet. There's no other way that you can have WeChat Wallet or any other type of wallets that they use. Alibaba wallet. You've got to have an account in China. Both parties have got to have an account in China in an active uh, phone number. So you've got to have that connection. So they also buy the food and have it delivered, obviously, through WeChat by using WeChat Wallet. In other words, paying overseas. So the payments, the money comes from overseas, and so it's the transaction. The payment of the transaction is not paid here; it's paid over in China, effectively, right? Um, they buy groceries on local Asian platforms that you and I can go on these platforms, but obviously we're not able to buy. We're not able to pay with WeChat Wallet because we don't have. But they do accept, Visa, Amex, other credit cards, debit cards, or if you go to the warehouses, they accept cash over the counter, so you can buy these, and they're very robust. I was going through some of these websites, and they're very robust. You can buy anything, Martin, on these websites other than cooked food. You can buy other, basically groceries. You think of what you and I would buy. Not that I go to Woolies or Coles. Best of times I'll go to Aldi. So whatever you buy there, you can buy on these platforms. Now, take it a step further, you can buy clothing, you can buy cosmetics, toiletries, sanitary stuff for ladies, and have a broader range of products than what you would otherwise get at your Woolies, Coles, Aldi stores. Amazing, fascinating. And I actually got to go to the warehouse as well, to one of the warehouse. Dusty took me to one of the warehouses. It was very impressive. The shit there was, it was, people were just going, picking and packing. They weren't even running around. They were on these electric scooter things. It was fascinating to watch. I wasn't allowed to videotape. So now, what they also do in order to pay for other essential services like transport, like your Opal card credits or other travel expenses, and other wants, other desires. They some of them work part-time jobs, which is pay cash in hand on construction sites, or this is what we call the little brothers or little sisters. that they get paid anything from $250 to $400 a day, cash in hand. So think about, you're the economist, Martin. So think about the many millions of dollars that don't get picked up by the ATO, the transactions that don't get picked up by the ATO that aren't registered here in Australia, because payments received from a Chinese bank into another Chinese bank account, payable to another Chinese bank account. Now, as I said, obviously you've got to have an account holder over there that the business is registered to, or that payment that's received to in acceptance. As long as you get a receipt, there's nothing you decide. But as I said, the fascinating thing for me was how many real estate officers participate under this scheme as well. It was fascinating. It was like I said, I knew part of it as we've shared on the show, but I didn't know how big this, as I call it, how big this shadow economy is, or shadow market is.
Very interesting, Edwin. And in fact, on that article, you also included there the one from Tarek, who actually showed how immigrants tend to provide fiscal boosts to Anglophone countries, net recipients of government spending across much of Europe. The point is, it varies by locale and type of student, or type of person in the country. But the general point that you make is really interesting. That in fact, if there's a lot of stuff going on that doesn't touch the Australian economy directly, but only indirectly via China, and of course that wouldn't be captured in any of the official returns or the GST or returns or whatever. So yeah, I wonder how big that shadow market truly is. And I wonder whether anybody knows. And I suspect nobody knows. But it's another really interesting case in point about how what people assume happens isn't necessarily what actually happens. And in the real world, things can be quite different. And a lot of money can change hands in ways that you wouldn't expect. And, the tax man misses out, I guess.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, Martin. This is where now, I know it doesn't happen with the silent tigers, because the silent tigers aren't united as the Asian community is, and as the Chinese community is. Whereas the silent tigers are all over the shop. You would think that they would have something like a WeChat platform, but they don't, because they're so fragmented amongst the groups. They've got that they just don't see eye to eye with a lot of things. But obviously, this is what can happen, or what happens in a under a dictator and under the CCP. But it is fascinating. It is fascinating. So then when we start extending the pulling levers for different groups of people, to bring into, to add to our economy, when in actual fact there's a lot of money from previous immigration policies and previous migrants that have come in from China that have still got banking accounts or family banking accounts over there, and they've got access to those WeChat wallets. There's you could ask yourself that question: is it a viable, as viable as an investment as the government would like to think it is, by bringing the hordes of migrants from these nations that, in essence, you can go as far as to say that in some instances you're also buying cars through WeChat wallet. And the only thing that gets registered is that that tax when you go to register in your name, as to how you receive the money, is none of the concern of the government. You would think, but there's so many different operators, and I said I was absolutely gobsmacked. It is an interesting thing. But for next week, Martin, for the WeChat segment, as we drill into the ins and outs of WeChat, right? I'm looking at obviously being a property video rant. I'm going to get some information on two properties. I've already secured two photos in the video, and I'm going to show our followers and our viewers the bathroom, the showroom renovation that we talked about. It's absolutely fascinating, and I'm also going to show a house. I won't give out the address, or we won't give out too much what it is. Wait for it. This house was infested by termites, and they've done a quick makeover, and it's in the $2 million bracket, and it has a quick makeover. It's got some pretty mean lipstick. Yeah, if it was just land value, in my opinion, the land value is at 1.4, but it's gonna, they're taking it between 1.6 and 2 million. So I'm gonna share. I'm just waiting on the videos and the photos of that, and hopefully we'll bring that in the segment. And that's what we want to open up. And that's what we share with our followers and our viewers. That is the shit that really goes on, rather than draconian, nonsensical policies that don't get policed anyway, and the industry runs amok, or stories of $8.1 million sales, and in Bondi, or $8.7 million sales in Bondi, and $8.1 million sales in Strathfield, and all this sort of shit. This is why our followers watch our show, Martin. So I'm going to bring it. It's going to be, for all those that are watching the show, and that are, for our viewers, it is going to be interesting, because I'm going to follow that property to the end. That's had a termite infestation. I'm going to buy the report that the agent's going to supply, and to see if the report, there's anything said on the before you bid report with regards to the termite infestation.
I look forward to that, Edwin. As always, we bring some exclusive revelations to our audience, stuff you won't find anywhere else. Let's just close with the numbers. The numbers, well, as you'd expect in the middle of winter, perhaps bubbling along a little bit. On the 22nd in Sydney, 16,629 in Sydney, and going forward a week, 16,724. It's on the 29th. So, not much really movement there. And I noticed that the uptick in the bars comparing this year with last year continues. So we're still seeing slightly higher listings, but not dramatically so in the Sydney area, at least, Edwin.
No, look, we've had, I think, about from last week to this week, there was 100 more listings on market. The interesting thing about last year, same week last year, was that there were from week 29 to week 30, there were 400 new listings that came on market across that week 30 from last year. I thought that was a bit interesting. It's going to be obvious. I haven't charted the preceding weeks. Well, I'll endeavour to do that. Dusty will endeavour to do that for our next show, and just keep on watching to see what happens. But again, for me or for the team, because we're commissioned mostly to purchase not strata lots, but freestanding homes. At the end of the day, there's only 7,035 listings on market in the Sydney region, according to Domain, which is not a lot, and hence why it's many areas are still hot.
Absolutely. Well, let's flick across over to Melbourne, where on the 22nd we had 27,086 listed. On the 29th, 27,221. So another slight rise. But once again, we still see this predominance of houses over apartments in the Melbourne market. And I think we're going to continue to see this bubbling along, particularly if Adam's right on what's going on down there. And if you look in the Brisbane market, 22nd, we have 3,629 compared with 3,611. So, minor movements there. But on the auctions front, well, there's a few more auctions perhaps than what some might expect. But again, the clearance rates are quite low. I covered that in my weekend show, actually, Edwin, because I thought it was quite interesting how the preliminary clearance rates are significantly higher than the final clearance rates once you actually see it all come through. And they're still not particularly flash.
No, they're not. Not in Sydney. From word on the street is that a lot of vendors are weary, and it is winter. Of it, each to their own and for their own circumstance. The agents that I've been talking to, the selling agents that I've been talking to over the weekend and also today, a lot of negotiations being done prior to auction. And because vendors are accepting, if it comes close to their expectation, because they don't want to see their property fail at auction and linger on market again. Because once again, buyers have got to understand that we go back to the lemons. People are expecting to achieve a higher price for inferior property than what was being sold in the area, only 2-3 months ago, and they want to achieve a higher price for the reasons that we spoke about in the show earlier on. The industry's created a rod for itself and a cross for itself, and now it's got to carry it. And this is why, in a lot of cases, vendors are opting to do a private treaty sale as opposed to going to auction at the moment. Not everybody's saying that, but a lot of the agents that I speak with, that's what they're reporting to me, which is hence the reason why we've got so low numbers or such a low appetite for vendors to go to auction.
Absolutely. Well, I think in the current market, unless you're really, really advised well, auctions are probably not worth pursuing. Let's just quickly follow up on the old rental sector. So in Sydney, on the 22nd, there were 13,016 listed for rent. Jump forward a week, 12,832, so a small fall. In Melbourne, on the 22nd, 10,668 properties listed for rent, and that was 10,649 the following week. So, still the stocks on the rental sector are actually not flash. Rents are still rising, even if not quite as fast. But the other thing I'm getting a lot of, Edwin, is a lot of people in existing rental properties are still being served with really large rent increases. So we're still seeing this gap between asking rents for new places and existing rents being reset. And that suggests to me that we're going to see the inflation data for rents from the ABS continue to hold at its quite high level at the moment, which is another reason why I think the RBA might have to lift rates again. So interesting times. And as we come to the end of the show, always time for your little thought on what might be a tip for the week. And it's about security cameras.
Well, this is the thing, right? So we inspected 3 properties for clients that want to prepare the homes to sell, and the properties have got, strangely enough, fixed cameras to them. Now, 2 of the properties, the cameras are actually still active, or they could be activated. But these are properties that are being tenanted. One isn't tenanted anymore, but the other 2 are tenanted. And I asked our clients, future vendors, landlords. I said, "Are they still active?" One wasn't, Thank God for that. But the other two were, but it's about we haven't activated them. In other words, there are these cameras, these fixed that you can hook up to your phone. Right now, they're not internal security cameras; they're external. But still, it's a breach of privacy, right? And the interesting thing for me that came to my mind was why wasn't why didn't the property managers ask the question that I was asking when I was walking through the properties with permission by the tenant. Why didn't ask? They didn't ask if the cameras are active or they've been deactivated or deactivate them or so if you're in a rental property, do yourself a favor, go outside, freestanding home or a townhouse or a villa. Go outside and see if there's fixed cameras in the backyard and obviously in the front and see if they're active. You may have paid attention, you may not have paid attention. Obviously, the tenants who were in there, they didn't they either they were I didn't talk to them. I didn't want to talk to them. It wasn't my position my position to talk to them. I wanted to talk to our clients, but I thought that was rather interesting. But this shows you how uneducated a lot of property management teams are, Martin. And when you sort of start when in a lot of cases, a lot of tenants are better, are more have more understanding of the rights and obligations than property managers do. The unfortunate thing is we're walking into, as I said earlier on in the show, where from different property management discussions that we had in the show, a lot of these property management teams are made up of ignorant or poorly educated agencies, teams that of different ethnic backgrounds, and there's real no policing of how they perform their duties, and there's really no oversight over them, and the licensees in charge wouldn't know any better anyway. So to me it was alarming, but we're sorting those things out as we speak. But I was dumbfounded, Martin, absolutely dumbfounded.
Yeah, very interesting. And of course, not only fixed cameras, but also door cameras too. Quite a few properties have these door cameras these days. And again, it's important to make sure that you understand what's connected, where it's going to, and who's watching. So it's very important to take some of these security issues quite seriously. And quite often you can go and find where the power point is, just turn it off on the wall, and then it goes away. That's another way of dealing with it. Edwin, I want to say thank you very much. Very interesting conversation, as always, some interesting insights. And I'll look forward to next week and your expose on the WeChat Chatter's story about those properties. That'll be fascinating to watch. And meantime, we'll just get on with some more craziness, because we are in peak crazy at the moment.
Yeah, look, last week I said that we could be hearing about Russia. We didn't. It was all, the wackiness was all centered around Paris. Maybe this week will be Russia. They might feel they might feel left behind, so we might be hearing about Russia. But one thing for sure, Martin, whether it's Russia, whether it's Paris, whether it's Venezuela, the elections in Venezuela, whether it's Honduras, El Salvador, Japan, wherever, something wackier than what we've experienced this week is definitely going to happen next week, or it could be in our own backyard, Martin. Could be something that the politicians do in our own backyard. But it's a wacky world, and let's see what happens. Looking forward to next week, and we'll see how it pans out. Fingers crossed that I do get those other two videos. Because it's going to be fascinating both for myself and for you and for our viewers to see what they've got to, in a way, expect and be prepared for when you're paying such a high price for properties. Just be careful.
Yeah, and just to say that we had some wackiness over the weekend with the Albo shifting the deck chairs on the Titanic with his front bench moving people around. I have to say, I'm not sure it's going to solve many of his problems, but we'll see. I'll look forward to next week, Edwin, as always, and take care. See you later.
All the best.